Okay, from where we left off from the last video, we went over the consumption function. And just to recap, this equation tells you how much spending on consumption goods you'll get if you just plug in income. So if I plug in disposable income, I could determine how much is being spent. And that's based upon, let me just back up again. That's based upon autonomous spending. This is the type of spending that has nothing to do with income, and this is income-dependent spending. So, basically, we expect that even with an income level of 0, there's going to be some consumption, and that's the autonomous spending, and we expect consumption will rise as income increases. Now again, we talked about that 45-degree line on that one graph that showed spending on the vertical axis and income on the horizontal axis. And that's any point along that line is going to be spending equal to income. So let's look at an example, Justin's consumption function. Here we have Justin, and we have different levels of income here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at his consumption function. So Justin's spending is going to be based upon this autonomous component, which means Justin always spends $50, regardless if he has a job or if he doesn't have a job. And this tells us that Justin will spend 75 cents of every additional dollar that he receives. So let's look at this. Now, what we've done here is we've filled this out. This is the autonomous component. So notice how this does not change with income. It stays the same. Here, we see the income-dependent consumption does change with income. When we give Justin $100, we plug in 100 right here. We multiply that by 0.75, and that's why we got 75 right here. So we add this to this, and that tells us at an income level of $100, Justin will spend $125. So that's basically Justin is spending more than he's receiving in income. Economists call that dissavings, but most people just say that Justin dipped into either his savings or he relied on credit. At an income level of 200, Justin still spends $50 on some goods and services, and then we'll spend $150. Now, how did we come up with this? We plugged in 200 here, 200 right here, multiply it by 0.75, and we got 150. So we did this at various different income levels. We plugged in various income levels into this part of the equation, and we were able to get Justin's total consumption. Now, you may already see this, but you could see that there is only one income level that can be sustained. And of course, that's when Justin's income is equal to his spending. Because if Justin spends more, as in this case, that can't be maintained for very long. And if Justin spends less than he earns, that can't be maintained for very long in terms of, let's say, economy-wide. If an economy saves more than it spends, eventually production is going to slow down or be reduced because inventory must be building. So here we go with this 45-degree line, and this line is just a marker. It shows when income is equal to spending. We have spending on the vertical axis and income on the horizontal axis. And these dots are the plots from Justin's consumption function. We plugged in various income levels, and we're able to get these dots, and we just connected them with a line. And as you can see, when spending equals income right here, that's at point C where it crosses this 45-degree line. So income levels above 200 Justin must be saving some amount of money because the points along his consumption function are below the 45-degree line. Here, income levels below 200, Justin must be dipping into a savings or dissavings because the points along Justin's consumption function are above the 45-degree line. So, what Keynes was focusing on is how, if we can get income into the hands of consumers or just people in general, that will shift the consumption function up. So basically, what will shift the consumption function up? Well, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. Keynes was saying if we put money in the hands of people, you'll move along the consumption function. But if we change any of the autonomous components of consumption, the consumption function will shift. I'll show you here. So, what can get people to spend more at all income levels? Well, one is make people feel better. Consumer confidence can shift the consumption function up. And of course, the reverse is true. A decrease in consumer confidence can shift the consumption function down. Let's give an example of this. Here's the consumption function. Now remember, this A right here is where the consumption function crosses the horizontal axis. This is when income is zero, you're still spending some amount of money. And so if there is a decrease in consumer confidence, that means there will be less spending at all income levels, and you're going to get this decrease. In other words, there's going to be a drop in A. And when you have a drop in A, you change the the vertical intercept. And here is an actual track of consumer sentiment. This is a monthly indicator measured by the University of Michigan. And this is a monthly survey that goes out and they try to get an estimate of how people are feeling. And you can see the shaded areas are periods of recession. This is where the business cycle hits its peak. Economic activity contracts, and this is where the economy comes out of a recession. And you can see when there are periods of declining consumer confidence, it happens to coincide with a contracting economy. So one of the complicated things here is, or confusing things, is people tend to mix up the consumption function with aggregate demand, and they show similar things, but they are two different graphical representations of consumer spending. So let's show the two in action here. So on the left, we have spending on the vertical axis and income on the horizontal axis. This is the consumption function we've been going over. And this is the downward sloping aggregate demand curve we've looked at earlier. And what we see here is if the consumption function shifts, in this case shifts downward, that's like a leftward shift of the aggregate demand curve. In other words, consumers are spending less at all income levels. And that means people are going to be demanding less. And of course, the reverse is true. If we shift the consumption function up, this is going to push the AD curve over to the right. So what can shift the consumption function? Well, a change in consumer confidence. We've already went over that. Changes in wealth, stock market boom, housing market boom. These are things that can make people spend more money even though their income hasn't changed. That shifts the consumption function upward. And of course, the reverse is true. When we had the housing bubble burst in late 2005, we saw spending drop, and that was one of the reasons why we had the big recession, the deep recession in 2008. And then, of course, another component of the downward economy in 2008 was a change in credit conditions. There was a tightening of credit standards that meant that people had less money, access to money, and that changes people's outlook, and then people spend less. Tax policies. If there's a tax cut, people may want to spend more at all income levels. If there's a tax hike, the reverse may be true, and that can shift the consumption function. And of course, the consumption function and aggregate demand, that's linked to the business cycle. Maybe I shouldn't say linked, but they're one and the same. When there is a leftward shift of aggregate demand, that means there's going to be a drop in output, and that means that you could be moving down the business cycle and the economy may be contracting. And of course, when you shift the aggregate demand curve to the right, the opposite is true. You're moving up the business cycle curve, and economic activity is expanding. So that's going to be pretty much going to help you on the problem sets, and this is going to give you an idea of one of the ways to try to use monetary and fiscal policy, which is try to increase demand, shift the demand curve to the right. And so monetary policy and fiscal policy can both be used to accomplish this. And when they are used to shift the demand curve, we call them demand side policies.